Hi folks, welcome to Kotlin Thursdays. Because Kotlin happens to be a functional language, Kotlin has a lot of really powerful characteristics that functional purists might consider as pillars for functional programming. But today we're only going to concern ourselves with how functions are treated as first-class citizens in Kotlin. This means that Kotlin functions are able to take functions as parameters. These are known as higher order functions, indicated by the pattern A, B goes to C, or A dot B goes to C. Folks told me there weren't enough sloth facts, so as a result, I'll do my best to rectify that situation. Let's functions with Kotlin generics. In Costa Rica, there are only two types of sloths: the brown-throated three-toed sloth and Hoffman's two-toed sloth. They actually have quite a bit in common with each other. For example, they both relieve themselves once a week and are able to expel as much as 1/3 of their body weight at a time. Despite their slow nature and digestive system, they can also swim in a manner that is very similar to the breaststroke, especially when the rainforest floods at certain parts of the year. It turns out pandas can also swim. As such, let's write functions for these particular things that sloths and pandas can do. Continuing on with the class that we already started on last week, I think we're going to go ahead and add additional functions to the mammal class. We're going to keep the implementations relatively simple. We're just going to include the mammal's name and the fact that they can swim. Because classes and functions tend to be final in parent classes, we have to indicate that they're open if we plan on overriding them. So in this case, I'm not really worried about pandas, but for sloths, we're only really concerned with sloths and their weight in regards to the relief function. I didn't think this is what we were going to be talking about this week, but here we are. It used to be that in Kotlin you had to write an extension function to be able to generate a pseudo-random number, but the nice thing is, as of Kotlin 1.3, you can use random.nextInt and indicate a range that you might want to pseudo-random a number, and in our case, it's going to be 0 to 1/3 of a sloth's weight. So we have a couple functions that we're working with, and if we wanted to have some kind of generic sloth activity function where we feed some sloth in to the sloth activity and we feed in an action, we can apply that action to the sloth. You'll notice that we put in the type unit for action. In Kotlin, this quite literally means it's just a block function, so there's no input and there's no output, but we know that there is a function. So we take our sloth and we're going to run a particular action on it. And we can go ahead and test this out with our currently existing sloth crew. And oh, it looks like I forgot to update our sloth objects with weights. We're going to have to do that. One thing I really enjoy about the Kotlin compiler is how you are given One thing I enjoy about the Kotlin compiler is how useful your error messages tend to be. I mean, this one's probably on me. I probably could have caught this myself, but I just wasn't paying attention. And all right, so we have multiple functions for swimming as well as defecating. There really isn't much more to say to that. Let's look at another example. Because unit was probably not too telling, let's go ahead and look at another example with more sloth facts. All mammals, including giraffes, have 7 cervical vertebrae, except for manatees, who have 6, and sloths, who have 10. They actually put yogis to shame with their incredible flexibility. Let's write some functions comparing these animals. In our facts, we kind of noticed that we included manatees in that bit. Again, all mammals have 7 vertebrae, including giraffes, except for pandas and manatees. I grew up in Florida, and I used to live off the Indian River where there were a whole lot of manatees. And when I was 7, something that you'd kind of do is turn on the water at your dock and throw down lettuce, and you can feed manatees that way. And anyway, one came up and surfaced, and I kind of like squatted down just to meet it face to face, only to have it blow snot in my face. And that's my experience with manatees. You'll notice that we actually changed our mammal class to go from open to sealed. And if you haven't seen Patrick Cousins' talk on sealed classes, it's quite amazing. I would highly recommend looking at it. And the reason why we changed mammal to sealed classes is that we're able to create a hierarchy in Kotlin that is not necessarily so exhaustive that you don't know what's in it. And I'll show you what I mean momentarily. In this case, our vertebrae count, we know that manatees have 6 cervical vertebrae. We know that sloths have 10 and everybody else has 7. Watch what happens when we put in another sort of fact checker for mammals of the known species count for every single mammal that we have defined. We have sloths, pandas, and manatees, and the nice thing is when you have your win for sealed classes, Kotlin's smart enough to know what the exhaustive list is within your sealed classes, and that's one feature that I really like about Kotlin, especially when it comes to sealed classes. As we mentioned previously, there are 6 known species of sloths, 2 known species of pandas, the other one, I guess it's like the regular panda and the red panda, and there are 3 types of manatees. I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference myself. I have no idea what the difference is. Okay, so we have a set of mammal extension functions. And you'll notice that it doesn't quite look maybe what you were expecting. Maybe you're expecting the whole mammal dot function. And what we're actually doing is taking advantage of Kotlin reflection, which is quite magical. We're going to use k function, and you know that we're expecting mammal extension function with the output of ints. And we're going to reapply our crew so that we have 1 sloth, 1 panda, and 1 manatee named Manny, because apparently there is this Viera baseball team in my county where they had Manny the manatee. Full of creative names today. And we're going to go ahead and apply our mammal fact check. You can see the double colon, which represents the Kotlin reflection. You have your mammal type, and Kotlin's going to be smart enough to know what function you're actually referring to. And there it is. That's kind of what it looks like. But let's go ahead and add one more bit. A lot of what these animals actually have in common is that they're threatened or endangered. We're going to write one more fact checker, which is called, is the mammal endangered? But interestingly, manatees are not endangered. Actually, they've been recently taken off the endangered list up to threatened. Must be all those manatee wake zones or something. You'll see that the compiler is complaining about us trying to feed this particular function into our mammal fact check. And the reason is, earlier we indicated that we wanted to take an extension function for mammal that outputs ints, but this output actually creates booleans. So this is just kind of a caveat that when you try to feed in parameters for parameters, you need to be careful of your types. Well, that is all I have today for generics in Kotlin. I hope you enjoyed the slew of sloth facts and panda facts and embarrassing manatee stories. Next time we're going to cover reified generics in Kotlin. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you really like what we're doing with Kotlin Thursdays, definitely subscribe. If you're interested in contributing, you should definitely reach out to me on Twitter. See you next week.